So this is the first of many sessions which are going to be geared to customers in the hopes that you will get more out of the product. The LAMUM, as you know, is very robust. There's a tremendous amount of functionality built in, and so we're going to be doing these seminars regularly. Today's seminar is focused on the LAM side, the license asset management side of the tool. And then there's another session going to be coming up in a month or two on the the usage monitoring side of the tool. So let's just focus on the LAM side for today. What is LAM for? Why did we put it in here? It's a software asset management tool for engineering applications in a nutshell. It's a place where you can manage floating, node-locked, and named user license assets for engineering applications. We don't claim to be a SAM. We don't do anything on the business side, although you could use this to track business applications. It's mostly designed to track engineering applications. LAM is also a place for renewal management. So if you're dealing with a number of vendors and have multiple renewal dates, and you want to keep track of the renewal dates and be able to prepare better for your renewals, this would be a useful way to do that. LAM is also a place where you can centralize and share information about your license inventory, about your vendor information, all the related information about your vendors, including related contracts and documents, a place where you can centralize and share contact information, PO information, a tool catalog to keep track of all your different tools and what the tool does, the discipline. And then it's a place where you can centralize and share information about your floating license servers, where they're located, the type of server, who's responsible for it, sysadmin, that kind of information. And then it's also an entry point for license usage monitoring. So if you're going to be tracking usage on your floating licenses, you need to come to the LAM side to put in the tool name, the port, the host, and the tag, which you're already familiar with that process. But mostly the LAM side is used to help you better manage software assets, license assets for floating, node-locked, and named users. So most people think of it, floating licenses, yeah, okay, that's a no-brainer, but you can also track your node-locked and your named user licenses in here too, just as easily. Again, this is not about usage monitoring. This is about inventory and asset management. It's about, tracking vendor information in detail and helping you better prepare for your renewals and negotiating with your vendors. That's in a nutshell what this is for. So what's the value? Better management of expensive company assets. And it's there's a rule of thumb in our business. About 100 engineers require about $250,000 a year in CAD CAE tools. And that's a very standard number. It can vary. It can be 200,000 per year. It can be 300,000 per year, depending upon what applications you're using. The EDA tools and electronics tend to be even more expensive, so that number could jump up to maybe 300 or 350K per year per 100 engineers. So if it's 200 engineers, it's double. If it's 50 engineers, it's half. So it's a very linear relationship between CAD CAE tool costs and how many engineers, based on the number of engineers that you have. So you can take that rule of thumb to the bank if you wanted to predict what you're going to need. And generally speaking, it's pretty damn close. The other thing that this tool offers you is best practices methodology. So LAM has been in the market for 15 years, and it's been evolving and gets enhanced twice a year, essentially. So what you see in it is the most you could ever want. I mean, Pratt & Whitney is one of our biggest users, and they have stuff that they've asked for and we put in there that you guys would probably never want, like commodity code. We'll talk about some fields that you probably never ever use, but some companies will. But in overall, the issue of LAM with asset management and the usage monitoring combined and integrated represents best practices methodology. To what extent you want to use the LAM side of the tool, totally up to you. But it's there. You're paying for it. It's not extra. It's not an option. It's included. What else is the value? Being better prepared for renewals. And there's a lot more than just saying, oh, I got to renew this in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. But there's a lot of things you can do to prepare for that renewal, negotiating with that vendor. Every vendor's different. Every vendor negotiates a little differently. Discounts are different. What they give away tends to be different. Their whole process is different. So you need to be able to track that. And in LAM, you can do that. You can be very specific about how each vendor negotiates. And the better you are preparing for those negotiations, the better deal you're going to get for your company. The other thing that is required with a lot of vendors is that you can renew your license mix every quarter, twice a year, or at least annually. You can remix, and so the use of this tool is going to help you with your remixes as well. The other thing, God forbid, but you can get audited by these vendors, and if you do, LAM will allow you to be better prepared for those audits. Being properly prepared for budgeting. Once a year you got a budget. Perhaps you've got an expense meeting coming up, and upper management wants to know what's the cost for CAD or CAE or a specific vendor. You'll have all that information at your fingertips, so it'll help you be better prepared for budget or expense meetings. Some companies, they want to be able to allocate costs, chargebacks, if you will, across vendors or by users or by groups. And so this tool will definitely help you with chargebacks or cost allocation across users, groups, or even projects for that matter. Some companies do that, some companies don't. Accurately know what you have. That's the big deal. If you're going to manage expensive engineering assets, you need to know what you have. And that's kind of where LAM fits in. It's a good starting point to know what you have and who in your company is responsible for which licenses. You could have 20, 30 different licenses, and different people in your company might be responsible for different vendors or different license types, and you can track all that information in LAM. We're actually going to go into LAM, and I'll show you where you can track information when we get into it a little deeper. A little bit on the architecture. The LAM is based on Apache Tomcat server. It sits inside of your firewall, and you access LAM through a browser. Chrome, Firefox, Edge. I say Internet Explorer ? Because I think they're sunsetting IE. If you do want to use IE, you can, but there's some settings that you have to have properly, it has to be properly configured to use IE. This is typically your login port. It's 8181, so it would be your LAMUM IP address :8181/LAM. And that should be saved as a favorite in your browser if it isn't already. So click a button, License Asset Manager or LAM, whatever you want to call it, boom, it takes you right to the login page. So yes, in order to get into LAM, you do need to have a username and password. And you all know about that already. Underneath LAM is a relational database. We use MariaDB. It's just like MySQL. And if you wanted to do scripting to harvest information out of the database, you can just use MySQL scripting to do that. The main components of LAM are these tabs: the Licenses tab, the Vendors tab, PO tab, Expirations tab, Tools tab, and Settings tab. So the Licenses tab is that's the main view of all of your line items. And that view is configurable and sortable and filterable. In fact, all the tables in LAM are sortable by clicking on the column heading. And most of them you can filter by just typing in a few characters and filter that table to get to what you want. The Vendors tab is the next most important, and that's detailed information about each of your vendors. So I don't know if you have 2 vendors or 20 vendors, but you can just click on the vendor name and see all the information about that vendor, who the contacts, the address, the contracts related to that vendor, and you can have up to 9 contracts or documents in there per vendor. You might have notes. Notes is a unlimited field. You can put whatever you want in the notes section, copy and paste a whole series of documents in there, or you could have URLs embedded in the notes section, again, related to that one specific vendor. And as I mentioned, you can have related documents, up to 9 per vendor. Then there's the PO tab. This is a list of all the different POs, who the vendor is, the PO number and the requisition number is available on the PO tab. But if you click on a PO number, it'll give you detailed information about that PO. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Some people like to track their POs in this tool, some don't. I know if you have a separate product, for tracking POs and you don't want to put them in here, that's fine. I get that. You have the ability to turn the PO field on or off, but some companies like to have that PO information available on each line item. So usually PO is related to a specific line item up here in the licenses tab. The expirations tab gives you a quick view of your renewals, plus or minus 30 days, plus or minus 60 days, whatever time period you set. Essentially, it gives you a backward look and a forward look at all of your expirations. Expirations having to do with the renewal date. We track the license key expiration separately on the side of the tool. We're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about renewal expirations, contract expirations. The Tools tab is where you can generate and see a catalog of all the tools that you have: product name, vendor name, and then the product discipline. What does the discipline do? And again, you can filter that by discipline. You can filter that by vendor, however you want to see it. And then lastly, the Settings tab is where you create your LAM users as well as responsible persons, which is a field in the Licenses tab. In the line item, you can see who in your company is responsible for that line item, but you put in those responsible people in the Settings tab. And then the types are configured there. In LAM, there's certain ways of filtering and sorting, and you can filter on different types. We're going to spend a little more time on types, but the types, you can add new types under the Settings tab. I'll get into more detail there. Actually, we're going to go through every one of these tabs today. But you need to know that there's no capacity limit on LAM. You could have 10,000 line items if you want. You could have 10,000 vendors if you want. You could have 100,000 POs if you want. There's no limit except for disk space. So just that's good to know. The Settings tab. Let's look at the Settings tab. So the Settings tab, as I mentioned, is where you add new users or responsible persons. It's also where you can set permissions. Different people, if you set them as a user and give them a username and password, they can get into LAM and see information. But depending upon whether you set them as admin, manager, null status, they have different privileges. So admin can see and do everything. Manager can see everything, including costs, but cannot delete anything. Null, if you can get in without any permission, meaning you have a username and password, but your null permission, that means you can view only. You cannot see cost data. The only people that can see cost data are managers and admins. And that's if you turn cost data on. You can turn cost data off if you want. And then the last permission is, do you want them to get email alerts on the renewal date? If so, they will receive an email alert in a prescribed number of days before the renewal. You can set that individually per person. So I could have 30 days in advance. You could have 60 days in advance. It doesn't matter. And that is, you have to provide an email address that you want the renewal alert sent to when you set the person up as a new user. And then you have to have email alerts enabled. Those are the only two requirements. If you want to use email alerts for your renewals, you have to have email alerts enabled, and you have to have an email address for the person that's going to get the alert. New types, and there are vendor types, purchase types, tool types, and restriction types. So you can add as many different variations of these as you want in this tool. No limit. But only admins have the ability to do this. So if you want to be able to create new types, you have to be classified as an admin. Filter is available on any type. So you can filter on any vendor type. You can filter, I'm talking about the inventory. You can filter the inventory on any purchase type, any tool type, or any restriction type. So vendor, again, you know what that is. Purchase is like subscription perpetual, with maintenance, without maintenance, that kind of thing. A tool is just the name of the tool, or the tool type could be a FlexLM tool. Oh, this is a cloud tool. This is it can be anything, any kind of type you want. Normal, spare, temp. Those are all tool types. Restriction types are like WAN, LAN, or some version thereof. WAN US, WAN Global, LAN Manchester, LAN Boston, whatever you want to call it. And node locked, named user, those are all restriction types. And you can filter again on any of these types that I've mentioned. And then lastly is a place where you can enable your email alerts. You can put in your email system and enable email alerts, and you can set the frequency of the emails. I mean, they sent daily or weekly, that kind of thing. Now let me go over to these are just a review of the types. These are the defaults that are in the system when you first get it. So for vendor types, we have direct reseller. For purchase types, we have subscription, perpetual, with maintenance, without. We have perpetual only. We have maintenance. For tool types, we have normal, spare, temp. For restriction types, we have LAN, WAN, node, WAN US, WAN global. These are the defaults, but any other type can be added in the various categories here. So let's go over to the tool and take a look at go to the settings tab, and this is where you add new users, and there's no limit on how many users you can have, their login names, their permissions, admin, manager, null. This is manager only. So again, I've already stated what the permissions are depending upon this, whether they're going to get email alerts or not. And on the LAM side, also enables you to determine who gets access to the daemon manager. The daemon manager is only accessible by somebody that's classified as an admin and a manager. So you can see that these people, these three are also that can access daemon manager, but nobody else in this list can. And everybody in this list appears in the responsible person dropdown. So even if they're not going to use LAM and want to come in and look at data in LAM, you can assign responsibility for a given line item to any of these people that are listed here. You can export this list to Excel, a CSV, or XML. This is where you set your alert notification time period. Right now I'm logged in up here as Guy, and I have my alert notification time period set to 90 days. Craig might want to have his set to 30 days. Well, he's not getting alerts, so Paul Revere might want to have his set to 30 days or 60 days. So each person can have their own unique alert notification time period. Down here is where you can change your email setup. We don't even have our mail server set up here in my demo. But this also allows you to change the type. So again, remember I mentioned the different types that we have. There's actually a fifth one that's standalone type, but I didn't mention that earlier. But yeah, you can have different standalone types here too. And again, we have the main ones are tool type normal, spare, temp, but you can just get a sense of these are all added. We've added all these different tool types here that you can also add if you want. Restriction types, LAN, WAN, node, and then you can add other types if you want down here. There's no limit on how many types. So if they're in the list here, they'll appear in the drop down for restriction type. And then if you want to add a new one, you just add it in right here. That's all. And then you hit submit, and that adds it to that drop down list. So each of these are unique drop downs. And when you do your filtering, you can filter the inventory by any of these tool types. So if I wanted to filter out just the Altium stuff, or I want to just see the temp licenses that are in my inventory, or however you've categorized them here, my Patriot program licenses. Restriction type, same way. I can filter on any of these. So I want to see all the licenses that are WAN, whatever that is, and so forth and so on. So it gives you a lot of flexibility on how you can dice and slice your inventory. Some of you may not have much inventory, so this might be overkill for you. But if you have more than 20, 30 line items, you're probably going to want to be able to categorize your line items different ways, and the tool type allows you to do that. So again, you can customize these tool types, just remember you have to do that under the Settings tab, under Change Types. And you have to be an admin. Only admins, if you have the admin checked, then you can see this. But if I logged in as, say, this guy or this guy here, they wouldn't see this global settings section. It wouldn't be visible to them. So it's just a protection thing so that the admins are the ones that have control over everything as far as new types go. So that's the Settings tab. Any questions about the Settings tab? Now, again, this is only for people that you want to come in through 8181 and they want to see the LAM data, or for people that you want to see in the drop downs for responsible persons. Okay, that's the only time you would ever come to settings, is to set up somebody so they can come in through 8181, or if you wanted to change types, you have to come in here. And again, classify yourself as an admin if you want to do that. So no questions about settings? Let's move on. So we talked about the Settings tab. We talked about types. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. Let's talk about the Licenses tab. This is the main type. This is the main site of all your inventory. So everything's listed here as a line item. This gives you the ability to add new line items. You can configure your view. You can import data into here through an Excel spreadsheet. We have ability to sort and filter the table, because some of these licenses, they could have hundreds of line items. If you want to break out everything, I mean, one vendor, you could have it listed as one line item, and all of the features and tools for that vendor are listed as one line item. Or you could have, say there's 30 tools for that vendor. You could have 30 line items, each tool on a separate line item. So that's something that you need to decide up front, is do you want to show one line item per vendor, or do you want to show one line item for each tool? It doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect the usage monitoring side of the tool at all. So let's see. These are the different fields that are available in the Licenses tab. Each line item can have a vendor name, a tool name, product name, a quantity, a date acquired, and an expiration. I'm echoing in somebody's. Okay. Well, anyway, please mute yourself if you're not, if you don't have a question or anything. Version number, PO number. If you're tracking POs for that line item, what's the PO number for that line item? Tool type, and again, that's one of those configurable fields. Purchase type, that's a configurable field. You can put in dollars, either capital or expense dollars if you want. Who in your company is responsible for that line item? Again, that's configurable. If you track license numbers, you can track that in here. Notes can be unlimited, so each line item can have a 2-page a note section if you want. Doesn't matter, related to that line item. Restriction type, again, that's the configurable field. License manager type, if you wanted to track, oh, this is a Flex LM license, or this is an LMX, this is a Reprise, this is Sentinel, whatever. For each line item, you can track the associated line item, and then if you wanted to, for each line item, you can track the license file for that line item in LAM. It has nothing to do with the usage monitoring, although we might use it for setting up the usage monitoring. But if you want to keep all copies of your license files in here by line item, you can do that. Just a thought. Let's see. So yeah, let's go back now and look at the Licenses tab. And that's the biggie. So in this example, I have 72 line items, but again, there's no reason why you couldn't have 7,000 line items. It's a lot. But again, you can configure the view up here. So right now I'm showing the vendor, tool, PO number, quantity, how many seats, tool type. Again, these are all my custom things that I can sort and filter on. My license server. So if it's floating license, you need to have the license server name, a daemon name, a port number, and a restriction of use. So this is typically, floating licenses, but you got some node locked licenses, or you can have user locked as a restriction type. And again, you can filter or sort on any of these column headings. I mean, if I just click on that, you can see I've now sorted it highest to lowest, lowest to highest. And you can do that on any column heading. Same with purchase type. I've got subscription, perpetual with maintenance. Each line item is separate. I can sort it. I can filter it. This is the expiration date of renewal. So this is the contract renewal date. And so these are all out there a long time out, or I can do it the other way around if I want. And then I've got dollars visible. So in this case, you know, this is the most expensive line item that I have right here. And then, oh, this is Lori Cook's responsibility. So I'm tracking who is responsible. So imagine if you have a lot of licenses and a lot of line items, how nice it would be to be able to sort and filter this, you know, on any of these fields. Now, let's say that you're not going to track POs because you decided that we got PO information in another MRP system and I don't really need to track it here. And therefore, I'm not going to track the dollars. Or you can track the dollars too if you don't want. But let's say I'm not going to track POs. So I go to Configure View. I just clicked on Configure View. And I just turn off PO and I turn off the dollars. And so now I don't see those fields because we're not using them. So this view is configurable by the person that's logged in. Right now, I'm logged in as Guy Haas over here. You know, that's who's logged in, and I've decided this is the view I want. So each person can come in and have a different view that they want to see. Totally up to you to decide if you want to track what fields you want to track. Do you want to track a single line item per vendor, or do you want to track a single line item? Well, you actually want to have a single line item per vendor daemon. So if you have, say, the same vendor on 3 license servers, you would definitely have 3 different line items in here. The tag would differentiate the 3 license servers for that vendor. Or, you know, if you only have 1 server for the vendor, then you just have 1 line item for that vendor. And all of the tools for that vendor would be under 1 line item, which is probably the preferred method. But some people, they want to have all the tools broken out, which you can easily do. So you might have, let's say, 20 tools from the same vendor. So the vendor name would be the same. The PO number would be the same if you had the PO here. But what would be different is the product name, the tool name would be different, and the quantities would be different here. And your costs might be different over here. So that's something you will need to decide. Do you want to have each tool broken out on a separate line item, or do you want to just have 1 item per vendor? Now, one caveat. If you choose to break out all the different tools for the same vendor, you do not want to be collecting data. So each of these line items is collecting usage data. You only want 1 line item per vendor daemon to collect data. I don't know if I can make that any clearer, but it's an extremely important concept. 1 line item per vendor daemon. Now, you can have multiple line items for that same vendor, but just don't list the daemon so that it's not collecting data 2, 3, 4, 5 times from the same daemon. That's what will happen if you don't do it carefully. If you have a question or a concern about setting that up, please write us and we'll help you through that. But conceptually, you want 1 line item per vendor daemon. Now, if it's node locked, you probably want to group them like this Acrobat 80. You have 80 under 1 line item. I would do that. I would not put down 80 line items for Acrobat 2. But if you want to, you can. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that with this tool. But best practices suggest that you have, you know, 1 line item for multiple node locks, and inside of that, you can list the detail, who the 80 are, you know, what machines they're associated with, and so forth. Inside, so you drill down into the line item and you can add in all the details if you want to do it that way. So it's fine to have, let's say, Abacus bundle for tracking the usage. So this is the 1 daemon that's going to track all the usage on Abacus bundle. But then you can have all the individual tools for Abacus listed separately, but without the daemon information. Okay, any questions about that? Again, it's just a way you want to show data in the licenses tab. That's what we're talking about here. So if you want, you can get line items in here. Most of you already have your line items in, so it's not even worth talking about. But if you wanted to, you can import line items using the import template. And essentially, if you click on import, under here, there's a template. We're going to talk more about the import template in a minute, so I don't want to belabor that, but you can import line items off of an Excel spreadsheet. Or otherwise you can add them interactively, just to add new line item. And you guys have already seen all this, so I'm not going to go through it. But again, these are all of the different tool types that I've got from that list in settings. These are all my purchase types that I've got from that list in settings. Responsible people, these are all the people in the settings tab. Remember that I had listed in the settings tab. So if you want more, you have to add them. Restrictions, same way. These are all the restrictions that I have in the settings tab. License types, these are just the different license types that we can monitor. I think most of you are at 9.2 right now, so you've seen all these, nothing new there. So that's sort of the detail. If you want to add a new line item, or if you want to import off a spreadsheet, configure view, I showed you that already. This is just a place where you can turn on and off different fields and customize it to what you want to see. The other thing you can do here is filter. Let's say I only want to see the stuff that I'm responsible for. Okay, I actually have these 72 items. I want to see just the stuff that I'm responsible for. So all I do is in that responsible person field type guy, and then this is everything that I'm responsible for. And if I can export this to Excel, CSV, or XML. So it's a nice way of kind of managing responsibilities, sharing responsibilities. I mean, some of you, it's irrelevant because one person in your company has all the fine. So don't use the responsible person field because it's going to be one name on everything. That's okay. But some of you have multiple people responsible for different licenses, and this gives you the ability then to be able to sort and filter the database based on responsible person. Again, this is all about asset management. Let me just clear that and bring everything back. Now, right now, it's showing like I had 902 seats. So that's all that 902 is the sum of all the quantities that are listed here for what that's worth. And then we have 72 line items. Again, there's no limit to how many line items you can have. There's no cost data because I decided to turn off costs. But if I put costs back on again, this will give me a value of my inventory. So in my demo here, I've got $2.3 million worth of assets. So I would highly encourage you to put in the values. This is the most current value for this line item. So if you need to go to management and say, hey, that's what we're spending now, what do you want to go to? And then this will give you a way of determining, do you need to go up or down on, well, the usage is going to help you determine how many more licenses you need. And that affects the costs over here. So, but again, this is the state of the art in terms of engineering software asset management. So that's pretty much it on the licenses tab. Any questions? I'd say this is the most important. I hate to use the word feature, but the most important piece of the LAM software is seeing everything in one place. That's what this is. And again, down at the bottom, if you wanted to dump this out to Excel, CSV, or XML, you can certainly do that. And again, you can sort by clicking on any column heading, or I can filter this by the filtering box. And again, this just allows me to type in a specific filter up here and see just that information. Cancel out of that. So that's the licenses tab. Let's go back over here again. So we pretty much covered all of that. These are all the different fields that are available. By the way, this presentation is available if you want it. Just let me know and I'll send you this presentation. We might even post this up on our website too, along with the video, because we are recording this and it'll be one of the customer training videos, and you can go back and review this if you wanted to. So there's another tab, vendor information. The vendor tab allows you for each vendor to list the name of the vendor, the type of vendor, that's a user configurable field, any related documents with that vendor, up to 9, notes, unlimited notes on that vendor, address, website, phone, contacts. You can have any number of contacts per vendor, showing the name of the contact, the title, email, phone number, all that can be put in here. And then history of purchases. So if you've been working with the same vendor for a number of years, you'll see all the historical purchases from that vendor, all under that vendor name. So it's a hierarchical. Yeah, let's go to the vendor tab now, live. So in this example, I mean, I'm showing 57 vendors. Most of you don't have that many vendors, but here's the vendor name, the type of vendor. Vendors are either direct reseller, or they can be anything you want. If you want to make them whatever you want to call it, ISV, or make up your own names. Vendor type is a configurable field. And then the location of the vendor. But most of the important stuff is under the vendor name. So if I just drill in to Cadence, this is where all the good stuff happens. So under Cadence, this is where I get a list of all the documents related to Cadence. And these are contracts, in this case, an NDA, perpetual subscription. And again, you can have up to 9 files per vendor in here. And it can be anything you want. If you want to add a file, you just go to the edit button and you search to it. So right now, file 7 is open. I can search to it and just save it. Then there'll be a file 8 and a file 9. You can go up to 9 files per vendor. This is where you put in your notes for a vendor, and the notes can be pages and pages long. We don't have that many here. In this case, it's, the discount rate and last discount rate, maybe payment terms, who you're negotiating. This is where you would put the vendor specific renewal behavior, things that you need to know before you meet with that vendor again. That's what I think. Best practices suggest that the vendor notes section is where you put the history of how that vendor negotiates and who the key players are and how you get the best deal with that vendor. Whatever it is, you can put in whatever notes you want on that vendor, but the side that is best prepared usually gets the best deal. So if you're better prepared than your vendor, you're going to get a better deal. And so I would highly encourage you to use the vendor notes section. And so this is the same thing. These are the notes on this particular vendor. This is the address for this vendor, Cadence. Down here are my contacts for this vendor. And in this case, where you've got the applications engineer, sales rep, district manager for that vendor, and their phone numbers, and then underneath their names here is their email address and maybe other relevant information about that person if you want to track that. Totally up to you. But the whole concept here with LAM is to centralize and share this information. There's no reason that everybody that's related, that has any contact with this vendor, has to have their own set of data. So if you got 3 or 4 people, working with the same vendor, this is a place where you can share the information in one place. Now, who maintains this data? Usually it's the person responsible for that vendor. This is their tool. So they would come in here and put in the related contracts and notes and so forth. But the key is to centralize and share related information about each vendor. And right now we happen to be in Cadence. And then this is the history. So this is called list of items, but underneath here is a list of all the different POs that we've issued to this particular vendor. So if you ever wanted to go back in history with a vendor, you could come here and click on the related PO and see what how that deal went down. So that's sort of the vendor perspective. If you wanted to edit a specific vendor, again, you can just click on the vendor name and then click edit, or you can come over here and click edit here. It just gets you to the same place. So if you want to add documents, you click on the choose file button here, and it's like you browse to the appropriate document and you hit save, and it brings it in over here. And I can, again, get to those documents just by clicking on the button here. It's actually making a copy. It's not like it's moving that document into this database. It's making a copy of that wherever it was and putting it into this database. Again, up to you to decide whether you want to use this functionality within LAM, but again, knowing more about your vendors and being able to centralize and share that information is really important. Let's go back over here. So that was vendors. I think we've exhausted that one. PO information. Again, this might not be interesting for everybody, but under the POs tab, we have a list of all of our POs, the name of the vendor for that PO, the charge center, and the requisition number if you want. Totally up to you. And again, I can sort by clicking on the column heading, or I can filter. I mean, if I'm only looking for a specific number, I would just type in here, a number, 134, whatever it is. I don't remember the name of it, but so here's 3 POs that started with 134. The name of the vendor and so forth and so on. And if I really wanted to drill in and see what was in that PO, I click on the PO number. And so now it gives me more information about that PO. Stuff like these are all the related documents for that PO. It's a hard copy of that PO, a hard copy of that quote. This might be some kind of requisition document. You can have as many, up to 9 documents per vendor. You can also have the requisition number. If you don't want an actual hard copy of the requisition, you can put the requisition number in here. Notes on this PO. Again, this is only related to one PO. We got a 17% discount, 2 days on-site training, so forth and so on. You could have embedded URLs inside here if you wanted. If you are tracking commodity codes, you can have that. PO status can be any, these are free forms. You can put in what you want for PO status, who the invoice approver is, and if I do an edit on this, you can see we created a list of people. So maybe it's John Doe is the invoice approver. Again, to what extent you want to use all this is up to you. Some companies, Pratt & Whitney uses all this stuff. A lot of these fields were put in here for Pratt & Whitney as an example. You may not care who the invoice approver is or what the PO status is. That's fine. Just don't worry about filling in those fields. Charge center, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you care, maybe you don't. But again, you can add new charge centers in here if you want. It depends on who's paying for it. I guess that's what the concept is. And then these are the details of the PO. So in this case, I ordered 2 line items. This is a $75,000 PO, just to give you an idea. So that's sort of a PO perspective. Whoop, let me get out of there. And I can put in the PO here separately. I can add a new PO. I can import POs from an Excel spreadsheet. I already showed you can filter, which is what I did already. I'm going to clear that filter out so it brings back all my POs. The other place I can put a PO is if I'm adding a new license over here, a new line item, sorry. And there is a place here where you can add a new PO too. So you don't have to go back to the PO tab to add the PO. This system already knows that, if you select Abacus, these are the Abacus POs that already exist. And if it's not in the list, I can add it here. And all that's going to do is take me back over here to my add PO field, and I can put in a new PO number, requisition number. I can list who has to approve it, so forth and so on. So that's how you can add a PO, either directly on the PO tab, or I can add it here. So those of you that want to track POs, it's here if you want it. Totally up to you. Any questions about the PO tab and information you can store about a PO? Nope. All right, let's keep going. These are just the different fields that I've already talked about. We don't need to go back and talk about that. The expirations tab is just a quick view. It's sort of a quick view of your renewals past due by X days, or your renewals coming up by X days, where X is a specific number of days. Number of days the current logged in user requested. Each LAM user can specify their notification time period. That's what I was doing over here under settings. I set my alert notification time period to 90 days. So when I look at the expirations tab, this is going back 90 days and this is going forward 90 days. So this view is kind of nice because it gives me, if I missed a renewal, I'd see it up here. And these are the ones that are coming up. Gives me the vendor name, the tools, the license, the PO, the old PO number if there is one, and then the expiration date. the renewal date, essentially. So that's a pretty simple tab. It's just a number of days. You can set this to whatever you want individually. And that's done, again, over here. If I set that to 60 days, let's say I only want to see it 60 days, just a real quick, just so you know that I'm not cheating. Now it's looking back 60 days and looking forward 60 days. Again, if you're really into managing renewals, you want to definitely work with the alert notification system, and be monitoring this stuff. And the email alert system will automatically send you this according to the number of days that you've asked for. So when something comes up 60 days, boom, you're going to get an email that says you've got this vendor coming up for renewal. All right, so that's that. Any questions about the expirations tab and the alert notification system, renewal alert system? Nope. Okay, so there's another tab called reports, and these are for one-click reports on current license tool inventory, and there's 13 different reports. I'll show you in a minute. Essentially, there's 13 ways of looking at inventory. Expense estimates. This is for budgeting by a specific period. I want to know what my renewal expenses are going to be, between now and the end of the year, or whatever time period you want. Or you can see what my annual expenses are with any vendor. So that's expense estimate reports. PO history. Again, if you're tracking POs, you can see history by vendor, by cost center for any given time period. And then this has a quick report on just dump out all my vendor contacts if you wanted to just do an Excel spreadsheet of all my vendor contacts. So let's take a look at the reports tab. And so here's the 13 ways of looking at inventory. And so if I just want to see WAN inventory, I would do that. LAN inventory, and it will pick up all the variations of WAN, all the variations of LAN in one report. Node locked, subscriptions, temp keys, purchase types, restriction type. Here you'd have to specify, I want to see all, specific restriction type, specific vendor. I want to see all my inventory with, vendor X. This is all my standalone inventory. I only have 3 standalone inventory line items. This is my inventory by license number. And you have to specify the license number. I don't know why that would be useful, but it's there. And then this is just an inventory, a report based on expiration dates. It's sort of a summary of report of all the expiration dates that are coming up. And then these are all my expense estimate reports, renewal expense for subscriptions, renewal expense for just maintenance, renewal expense by vendor, upcoming. All of these you have to state a period of time upcoming. And this is the PO reports by history, by period, by vendor, by charge center. And then these are my reports for contacts by vendor. And I can get a list of all my users out and what the permissions are. Users are these people here that I have listed here. So those are all my quick reports, as I said before. But again, each tab I can get this whole thing out as XLS, CSV, or XML. And that's true of either one. All of these. Even the vendors tab. I come down here. I've got the output for each of these in the Excel, CSV, tools, and all my license servers. I didn't talk about license servers yet. I don't think I'm there. So that's reports. Renewal management. So let me talk about renewals for a second. There's 2 ways of handling renewals. One is what we call the clone method, which creates a new line item. So you'll see the old line item and then a new line item with the new PO in it. That's the clone method. The edit method is to take the existing line item and just edit the expiration date, the PO number, the quantity, the dollars, anything that's changed. You just change it and then save it. And that remains a single line item. But if you want to see the old line items with the old PO numbers and the old dollar value, you can do that by using the clone method. But what would that do? Well, it's going to more or less it's going to dramatically increase the number of line items if you use the clone method. So that's the one thing you have to be aware of. Now, in the configure view, there is an option for turning off all expired licenses. So if you don't want to see them in the table, the old stuff, you just click that option and it's going to only show you the new stuff, not any of the old line items. So again, this is a decision you're going to have to make with management. Do you want to see everything as a separate line item, or you want to see just one line item per daemon, right? You're going to have one line item per daemon, per vendor. The cloning method, if you want to do the cloning method, it's pretty straightforward. All you do is, it's an easy way to duplicate a similar entry. You duplicate and change only what is necessary. You click on the tool name and then hit clone. So if I go over here and I want to clone this, I want to renew this one right here. All I do is click on the tool name. You have to click on the tool name and hit clone. When I hit clone up here, it brings up the current version of that. And maybe, oh, okay, I'm renewing this to 23. I'm going to just go ahead and do it so you can see what it looks like, and submit that. So now you can see, I forget where I was here. Was that the standard one that I just renewed? Yeah. So I just renewed this one, and you can see that just the date changed here. That's all I changed. I could have changed other stuff, but you end up with a second entry in there. And that's the only problem, is that you're going to end up with more line items if you do it the clone method. Any questions about line item cloning?
Yes, Guy. This is Chris. Or it says TeamEDA on there. Anyways, when you do a clone, say maybe we changed it to a different server. We had to migrate maybe 3 licenses from 3 different servers, and we wanted to migrate to one main server.
Yep.
Would it retain the information that was already collected now on this cloned information?
Well, let me show you again. So I just clicked on this Abacus standard and I want to clone it. So all of the information about license servers is down here. So yeah, if I want to change the ported host on the new line item, I would do it down here. I can add a new ported host. You just do it here. So the only thing
I understand that. I'm asking, will it retain the already recorded information? Like, say you already had licenses from January to September, and you had to move it, like maybe we're migrating October. Will it retain that information is what I was asking.
Well, it's going to be a different tag name. So, it'll retain the old stuff under the old tag name and the new stuff under the new tag name. And there are ways to merge that. If you want to merge them, yeah. Just type support@teameda.com and
okay.
tell them what you want to do, and they'll tell you how to do it. But so that's merging tags. But yeah, each ported host is a different tag. Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows what a tag is, right? All right, any other questions? All right, where are we at here? So that's cloning. There is a document up on a TeamEDA website under resources. It talks about cloning. You can certainly go up there and read all about it. So interfacing with other systems, people ask about this all the time, and there's 2 issues here. One is, how do you get data out of LAM into some other system? So first thing is, I showed you every page, every tab, every table can be exported to Excel, CSV, or XML. And then you can do whatever you want with it. That's getting data out of LAM. The second way is, if you know MySQL scripting language, or somebody in your company that knows MySQL scripting language, you can go in and harvest data that's already in the LAM database and pull it out. Don't try to put data in that way, but you can pull data out through MySQL scripting language. And if you're going to do that, you're going to need the table schema, and we can provide that. Again, write support@teameda.com and ask for the table schema, because you want to do some MySQL scripting on the LAM database, and somebody will get back to you on that. So that's getting data out of LAM. Getting data into LAM, there's essentially only two ways. Manual entry, which you know how to do that. I just showed you how to do that. It's pretty easy and quick and intuitive. The second way is if you have some of your data already in Excel, all you got to do is copy and paste that data into the import template. And I think I showed you where you get that template. Maybe I didn't. So let's say you wanted to import PO information. It really doesn't matter. They're all the same. There's a button here. It says Excel template file. You want to use that template file and copy and paste your data into that, and then it will import it for you. All you do is you paste into that, save it, come here and choose it, choose file, and just browse to the file that you want to import and click import, and it'll bring the data in. There is a certain sequence that you have to follow, very critical. I thought I talked about that a little bit more. I will talk about that in a minute. But yeah, there's a sequence that you need to use. The templates, for instance, the vendor has to be in before the licenses, because the licenses refer to a vendor name. So stuff like that. The third way of getting data into LAM would have to be through some kind of paid NRE. Just come to me, come to TeamEDA, write support@teameda.com about what you want to do, and we'll have to take a look at it and see if it's possible. And if so, you know, we can maybe do some customization, but it's going to, and price it out that way, but it's going to be based on a statement of work. So we'd have to create a clear statement of work of what you want, and then we'd have to quote you on that separately. That's called non-recurring engineering. And we could do custom interfaces on that basis if you want. But most of the time, it's either manual entry or import through the Excel spreadsheet. There is a document up on our website that explains how you use this Excel template. So make sure you read that if you're going to try to import data using this template. That's what it looks like. That's what the file looks like. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and each got different worksheet tabs under here. So there's a vendors tab, a PO tab, a licenses tab, you know, there's servers tab and so forth. So every tab in LAM has an associated worksheet tab down here. And if you want to, right now I got it set to vendors. So what you're going to do is paste all your vendor names in here. If you have other information about those vendors that you want to put in here, yeah, just copy and paste it into here as best you can. There's a whole bunch of fields across here that you could paste into. Then you're going to save this. Then you're going to go import it, and all your vendor information will be set up. But it pulls it off of this tab. The worksheet tab is the thing that triggers it to go to the right LAM tab. So in a nutshell, that's how the import template works. A couple of points of interest. Sequence is critical. And again, that's described a little more in that document up on our website. Vendor, I'm trying to think, vendor, PO, licenses, or tools, and then licenses, or something like that. It's a certain sequence. An app note is available. Yeah, right. That's what I was just saying. Check out that app note if you want to import using the template. Or if you're stuck or confused, write support@teameda.com and somebody will help you. There we are. So if you need support, oh, I'm sorry, this happens to be support about the product. So if you have any questions, in the upper right corner of LAM, I'm not sure if you guys ever noticed it, but there's a button up here in the upper right hand corner called Help. And if you click on that, it brings up a 148-page manual, PDF, about everything you want to know about the product. I don't even know if you were aware that this was even here, but everything you want to know is in here. And you can, again, it's context sensitive. So if I want to know about the tools tab, I just click on that, or POs tab, I click on that. And there's probably something on just about anything you could ever imagine. This happens to be about LAM and UM, but there is a whole section here on the LAM side of it only. Everything that we talked about today is in here. And that's all available just by clicking on that help button right up here. And then if you go to our website, teameda.com, right here, just go to TeamEDA. That's the button right there. If I click on that, well, why don't I just do it? I'll just click on the button. It's going to take me to the resources tab in at TeamEDA.com, and under there is a search box. You kind of like type in whatever you want, like, oh, I want to look at denial documents. So I just click on denials. Let's see what comes up. So these are all the documents in our library that have to do with denials. So I don't know if you guys knew that all this was up there, but there's probably 50 or 60 different documents under resources. There are application notes up there, white papers. You probably don't care about the demo. There are update videos. So we're coming out with 9.3 soon. So I'm going to do an update video on 9.3 in probably a month from now, and that'll be recorded. Training videos like this webinar that we're doing today, that'll be posted under training videos. So there's a lot of information available under the TeamEDA resources tab. So feel free to, look for it or do a search for whatever topic you're interested in, and or you can chat with Dasha. So again, the main number for technical support, not number, but email support@teameda.com. And you can always call our number here, 656-5200. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 here. If not, there'll be an answering machine. And then we do have the chat. If you go to our website, there's a chat option up there now. And that's Dasha. Say hi, Dasha. I think she's on this call.
Hi, everybody.
That's Dasha. So she's our chat person. So with that said, I think I've exhausted all my slides. Are there any questions about LAM and why we have it and why you should use it? I can't have done that good of a job. No questions at all? I guess we got disconnected, Dasha.
And we will be sending a recording after this webinar as well. I did receive a couple of emails about that, so we will be providing that to everybody afterwards.
If you're too shy and you just didn't want to discuss it right now, but if you still have questions, please feel free to email me, ghaas@teameda.com, or again, support@teameda.com, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. But the purpose of this training session is really to help you get the most out of this tool. You're not paying any more for it. It's all there in what you have right now. So please use it. We think it'll make you more effective at managing these expensive, engineering assets. Oh, wait a minute. I see some chats. Hold on a second. I see some chats. Oh, those are all from Steve Atfield. Okay, Steve, yes, it is being recorded. He asked about it being recorded. So, yeah, it'll be posted in a couple of days. Anything else? If not, I will say thank you for showing up, for coming, and I hope everyone has a good day, and I hope everyone stays healthy. Thank you.
I think I have a question maybe about the servers tab.
Oh, Lee, hi.
Jerry.
Oh, no, Jerry, I'm sorry.
Close.
I hit the wrong. Okay, servers tab. Yeah, this is your license servers. So, yeah, this is a list of all your license servers, where they're located, the type, which you don't have. This is not mandatory. You don't have to fill out any of this, but you do have to put in the server name if you want to monitor usage on that server. But yeah, what was your question?
Okay, so we have like a group of servers that work as a
Triad.
Yeah, Triad.
Yep.
And do you have any like recommendations on smart ways to do that? Because I think in the past I've had some confusion as to what was going on, and I inherited my LAM, so I'm a little confused as to what it's doing.
Yeah. So under each server is a let me just go to the server 2003. Is a daemon, and if you the triad is defined under the daemon name. So if you have a triad, see you have three place to add 3 servers.
Okay.
That's where you're going to define your triads. It's going to be under one daemon name. Follow me?
Okay.
And yes, they will. Will the 3 servers appear over here listed separately? Yes, they will. They'll appear. All 3 of them will appear here.
Okay. Because it does like monitoring for whether or not the servers are up. And
Well,
I had some confusion once about which one. It was like monitoring the one that wasn't in the lead as not being up. And so it was like telling me it was down.
oh, well, that's a good point because go back over here.
The engineers to tell me that something was broken, and I was getting like a warning message that said it was down. I'm like, going.
This is the primary. The first one you put in is the primary. So if you're listing a triad here, make sure that this is the primary, and it will bounce from if the primary is down, it'll go to the server 2.
Okay.
We're collecting data. Again, this is only about doing an LM stat, right? And this information only tells us where to go to do the LM stat. Usually if it's, there's 3 servers, its port numbers are going to be the same.
Right.
But this one tag name is going to represent all 3, the triad in this case.
All right.
Does that answer your question, or is that just...
I'm still learning this thing, so I'm still mostly confused, but I think I get it a lot better now that I've come to this meeting. So thanks for having me.
And again, we'll help you individually. If you need help, please feel free to reach out, ghaus@teameda.com or support@teameda.com, and we'll get you some one-on-one help if you need it.
Well, thanks. Thanks
no
a lot.
problem. No problem. Any other questions? If not, okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Guy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Guy. Have a good day.
You too.